Hi all. I do feel a bit naughty about this game presentation. I just want to say I'm a big fan of David Howell. He's the number 3 right now on the ECF grading list. A very, very strong grandmaster, hugely talented player, has been for many years. Is miles better than me as a chess player. Miles, miles, miles better. And I just had this interesting game against him recently that someone mentioned maybe I should go over. I'm not going to say his nickname. Maybe you could work it out. But anyway, so he was playing white. It's a 3-minute time control. And I played g6. I'll try and explain some of my practical decisions, which might be useful for your blitz chess toolkit, which is a kind of different skill set from classical chess. I think in blitz and bullet especially, mere mortals, mere club players might have a chance against strong grandmasters sometimes. In general, just the clock plays a more significant role. Blunders play a more significant role. Mouse slips, the whole logistics, it all becomes a lot more significant the faster the time control and online. So we have d4 from David, bishop g7, knight f3, c5, c3, knight c6, d takes c5. In fact, by the way, I did once also have a selfie with him in a quick interview. He's just a really nice, approachable grandmaster. So fantastic guy. I can't emphasize that enough. Anyway, so knight f6. We have bishop d3, and we both castle. And I play b6, and I have played this stuff before. I like to see it as kind of dismantling the centre, and as kind of gambit. Obviously it's a kind of blitz gambit I have played numerous times before with varying success. One thing going for it, I find you get some b-file counterplay sometimes, some pressure across the diagonal. Sometimes you get to play for d5. I just like to have active pieces in blitz as a higher priority to classical games. This is not a scalable idea. This does not scale well to very, very serious chess. So this is in the realms of blitz chess as its own skill set to try and maximize the scope of your pieces, the activity of your pieces, to feed them, open files and diagonals and stuff like that they enjoy at the cost of sometimes a pawn or two. So we have knight bd2. King safety hasn't been compromised in the process, though. That's a good sign here as well. We have queen c7, rook e1, knight g4, h3, knight ge5. He takes on e5, knight takes. So the bishop is asked to move. It goes back. Bishop b7, knight b3, rook ad8. So I'm playing for that d5 to increase the scope of the pieces, really. It's very, very practical ideas in blitz. One of the theories behind that I tend to believe is that the more active your piece is, the more the opponent could slip up, because weaknesses and tactical vulnerabilities will be more exposed to your piece pressure. So that's why I think gambits in general in blitz chess are often more effective. You're putting your opponent under more scrutiny, under the need to play more carefully, and with the limited time constraints, that becomes a lot more effective as an approach. So anyway, we have knight d4, d5, f4. This does weaken this diagonal a little bit, but my bishop's fianchettoed here. It doesn't seem that significant. Knight c4, I was hoping at least to get the light square bishop going across this diagonal. If he gives up the light square bishop, then this diagonal is going to be nice for this bishop. We have e5, so this is actually locking in my bishop for the moment. But can this structure be later undermined? That's the thing. Can this bishop see some liberation later? We have for the moment e6. He is threatening. It looks as though he might be threatening e6 as well. So putting a lock on that pawn. b3, knight b6, queen d3, a6, depriving the use of what could be a useful knight maneuver to d6. Bishop e3, knight d7. And yes, I might be kind of threatening knight c5 to e4. So that's stopped with b4. Rook d e8, bishop f2, knight b6, trying to go into c4. a4, knight c4, bishop h4, queen c8, rook a2, and now I try and hit the center with f6. I mean, the knight's already participating here, putting pressure on e5. E takes, bishop takes. And actually, an interesting new philosophy in my toolkit recently that I've spoken of after rook takes f6 is I like the idea of pin and win. It's one of those sayings that I actually think is actually a practical tool during maybe any time control, to think of pin and win, because you're kind of immobilizing the opponent's pieces. And I even have a more a graphic illustration, like I would sometimes explain weakness of the last move, like karate. If someone throws a punch at you in karate, you see what have they just left behind, or in boxing. That's like weakness of the last move. I like to internalize with kind of fighting metaphors, physical fighting. In terms of pin, it's like you're constraining a muscle of the opponent. They can't like move an arm for a moment when you're pinning a piece. And when you combine and win, which is my saying, which I don't think is a popular saying, it doesn't really rhyme or anything, but combine and win, when you combine pieces, I felt I could combine rooks. And that's like, to me, it's like strengthening an existing muscle. It's like there's an existing muscle of pressure, and it's like you're muscling up when you double or treble, or when you put a bishop and queen to, when you battery, put your pieces in a battery formation, you're kind of adding more muscle, and when you're pinning, you're kind of constraining the opponent's muscles. So I had this strange muscle metaphor, which I was going to keep for a top secret video at some point, but I thought I'd mention it here. So anyway, a muscle metaphor, because I think sometimes another thing about bullet and blitz chess, it's nice to really, I think, internalize concepts very intuitively as you can. To be able to play intuitively, I think it's nice to have very nice, very intuitive, quick, subconscious style of like thinking. You're doing these things on an intuitive basis. So I'm trying to add muscle basically to the F-file. So I'm creating batteries officially, as you call it, or as I'm starting to think about it as combine and win, not pin and win, but combine and win. So I want to add more muscle to the F-file. So I'm slightly aware of that. Also here I see an opportunity to reroute the knight d6. So that's a great square on e4. And the rook moves, and we have rook e f8. So I'm adding a bit more muscle here, doubling the rooks. We have c4, and now queen b8. And now here is a first mistake, actually. It's curious, when you put this through an engine, 2 or 3 of the mistakes identified involve somehow attacking this knight. Maybe it's because it is my best piece in the position. So here, instead of what was played, which was c takes d5, it seems bishop d3 is the preferred choice, just to try and get rid of this knight. So c takes was played, and here we have e takes d5. Now g3 was played, and here again I thought I've got quite a lot of muscle, so to speak, on common squares and potentially the f-file, but how do I increase that? I thought I'd try the undermining move g5. So we have f takes g5, and as I say, combine and win, you get new opportunities with that extra muscle when you double rooks or treble rooks, or you just combine pieces in general. You kind of get extra access to different squares, which might actually be winning squares, or massive moves being played later, those common squares. So I like the saying combine and win. So we have the rook retreating for the moment. Rook g2, this is a mistake actually here. Apparently g4 is better. For example, bishop c8 and then b5, white's pawn majority, should give white a clear advantage here. So anyway, rook g2, that's a kind of mistake from a technical point of view. I played queen e5, not really pouncing on it. So the point is, why that's a mistake, you might ask. It has kind of left 2 pawns potentially vulnerable to the computer when you check this with a computer. Bishop c8, but this is the nature of blitz. it hits h3 and b4, and this would have actually come close to only being a small edge for white. So anyway, queen e5, so white still maintains that 2-1 dangerous pawn majority over there. h4, and we have bishop c8 now. Bishop d3, bishop h3, and now here another little mistake, rook h2. Apparently bishop takes e4, just clear out this knight. It's like my best piece. After d takes, queen takes, giving up the exchange, but still, because white's got a pawn majority over here, this is going to be an advantage for white. But anyway, rook h2 was played, and this lets me play a nice move now. I was kind of excited. Can you see what I played in this position? If I give you 10 seconds to pause the video here. Black to play. Okay, the extra muscle, you know, from doubling rooks gives a, you know, combine and win kind of move. Well, it is a pretty dangerous move, rook f3. It disconnects the queen from g3. I know the knight's covering it, but it's still pretty dangerous to have this situation. So knight takes f3, queen takes g3 check, king h1, rook takes f3, and I was getting pretty excited here. Queen g1. Now I played queen takes h4. Maybe better is rook takes d3 in this position, and this is okay for black. This is slightly more doubtful. Queen takes h4. We have bishop takes e4, d takes. Better here, instead of d takes, is bishop g2. This is a very nice tactical move. If king takes is the best, then rook g3, take the queen off, and this should be with an advantage for black actually. The thing is, on bishop g2, if queen takes, as an example, then that leaves e1 behind, and then there's rook f1. So that would have been a nice move, bishop g2, but I play this, and we have b5, a takes, and now I blunder with e3. It does vacate the e4 square for sure, but white could have just snapped that off with just rook takes e3 here. So rook takes e3 would be very nice for white, and it controls the e4 square. That's the point. That vacation is not profitable under this circumstance. Rook takes e3, for example here, this. But instead of e3, I did actually have a good position by this point. If bishop g2 here, this resource still is pretty nifty, for example like this. And what else? Sorry, after bishop g2, if king takes, then rook g3 and queen f4. Apparently this is leading to a checkmate, for example like this. And if we look at this again, bishop g2, so king take, in the king takes g2 line, the check. Just to put this on the board here, after rook c2, if king d2 instead there, then queen b2 check, rook d3, and mating like that. So yeah, e3 was a mistake though. It could have just been snapped off, and that could have been a totally different outcome for the game. b6 was played thankfully. That gives me the use of the e4 square with a horrible discovered check possibility. So we have rook g2 being played. Yeah, it's a nasty double check as well. If queen takes, then it's a double check and mate. So rook g2, and we have rook f2, and now it's very nice. All of a sudden, we have queen takes f2, e takes, rook takes e4, check, and yeah, I'm actually winning a rook here after queen f3 check. And yeah, it gets quite fortunate as well, because after I'm trying to win that rook after the queen d6 check here, and king takes g5 is winning the rook there. Okay, and David resigned. So this might be the only game I ever beat David without him doing a terrible mouse slip. I think I might have beaten him on a terrible mouse slip game in Bullet when he berserked me, so he only had 30 seconds. But he actually had 3 minutes here, so I thought this is interesting, this game. Just maybe some practical tips for the blitz player. I think it is a totally different skill set from classical games, and it gives bunnies like me, you know, relative to David, a bit more of a chance. The clock factor clearly levels the playing field, but you can level the playing field maybe a bit more by trying to have some active pieces, maybe confusing the positions, trying to keep them sort of imbalanced and rich, a bit more complex in nature. But I think also this, you know, combine and win tip is useful. I've always thought, you know, my pin and win, when I say that, I often win games when I have these pins, and they do often win, or even unpinning is a powerful idea as well, or the backfire on the pinner. There's a lot of things with pinning which seems to win games for me, but this new concept of combine and win with this muscle metaphor, there may be a lot of situations on the chessboard where you're not seeing enough to sort of say, okay, I need to double rooks or treble rooks or combine a bit more power here, not realizing that extra muscle power sort of gives you access to key common squares which could actually win you the game. So in this case, you know, that rook f3, that common square was enabled by the extra muscle power of the rooks being doubled. Okay, so I hope you got something from this game, and I've got a new course at Udemy. If you want to check out Kingscrusher TV/Opening Tango, I spent quite a few weeks on that course, and it's got a good rating at the moment, over 4.7 at the moment, and it's a good discount till the end of the month. I think it's really helped me learn about weakness provocation in general. It's not just learning some opening lines. It's the whole philosophy behind it, I think, was sharpened as well when I was researching in detail for that course. So you might want to check that out, Kingscrusher TV/Opening Tango, or invite me for a 5-day move game at Chessbold, bit.ly/Chessbold. Okay, comments, questions, like, shares, subscribes with the notification bell, really appreciated. Thanks very much.